All right, you guys. So welcome back to the show. I actually have like a good friend of mine that I've never met in person, actually. Allison, I actually met her through, we got connected, I think through Paul Check. And he
Yeah.
connected us through via email, and I got a chance to be on her show like a little while back. And then I invited actually to be on my podcast today. So what's going on, Allison? What's new with you?
Hey, Eugene, it's so good to see you. Yeah, yeah, it's been a long time since we've talked. A lot has gone on, the whole coronavirus pandemic and then, everything else. So, uh I decided in that amount of time to write a book because I had the time to do it. So, yeah, so that's what I've been up to, really.
Gotcha. Well, I guess before we jump into the book, just to kind of for the listeners, I actually haven't spoken to Allison in quite a while, so I just wanted to catch up with you. I know in
Yeah.
general, like when you turn on the news, everything's like on fire and like dying.
Yes,
But
yes.
I was just wondering how things were in Oregon these days because every time I turn on the news, there's some kind of like riot going on or like something like some fire like burning down the whole entire state or something of that sort.
It was like that for a while. It seemed like there was something different almost every week that we'd come across here. It has definitely died down. I think since January, really. It's or after the election, I should say. But yeah, things have really tapered back a bit. But so I haven't noticed any, rioting or anything lately. But for a while there, it was pretty intense and yeah, very stressful, between the fires and the riots and the virus stuff and people are still pretty high in a fear in high in fear mode right now where I live. I know you and I talked briefly about that last time we talked before this show, about how it's not as much where you live, but here it's definitely people are very um, they're very fearful of the unknown and kind of what they don't know, I guess, about which I wonder about that too, because I know there's a lot of information out there about the virus at this point. So I wonder why people, where the discrepancy is there, sometimes.
But I thought like just fear was a new normal like human condition. It's like who
Yeah.
would people be without the
I
fear
guess
in their
it
life, you
drives
know?
us, it motivates us to some extent, right? But it's sometimes it really stifles you. So, especially emotionally, and it definitely stifles creativity, from what I've seen. So, and health, right? So, you and I work in the health realm, and so I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm seeing a lot of people that are, where their health is being affected by this excess stress that's kind of in the background there, right?
Yeah, I presume especially people that aren't working remotely, you know, then it's like
Yeah.
a lot more assholes. So what's up? What's up with this? What's up with this new book you got going on?
Well, I I went through a lot last year. My like right before all this stuff happened with the virus, like my dad passed away, and I was going through that, and then then we had the lockdown, and so it took a while for us to actually have his funeral, which was. He passed away in February of last year, and it's almost a year's anniversary tomorrow of his death. And uh, then we couldn't have the funeral because of the virus lockdown until June. And then when we had his funeral, something hit me that you know I've always wanted to write a book, but I've just not known what to write about because I've been doing this for a long time, at least almost 20 years now. I've been in the holistic health realm and studied with at the Czech Institute, amongst so many other things, just kind of because I've been really curious about health and how just lots of different perspectives and how people view health and how you can get healthy, and I think they're all correct. It's just that it becomes a matter of which way you want to go. So I've had all this in me for so long. I've been gathering this information and you know being just thinking about it and thinking about my perspective, other people's perspectives. And then finally, for whatever reason, at my dad's funeral, this message came to me that said, "Hey, let's write a book." And all of a sudden, all these ideas came flooding through. I wasn't even having to even try to think about it. And it was like, wow, okay, this sounds like fun. I've never thought about it like as fun before, but yeah, I'll do it. So at that point, and actually right before my dad passed away, I had been reading this book called The Artist's Way. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book, Eugene. Have you read that book before?
No, that doesn't even sound familiar, honestly.
Okay. So The Artist's Way is a book that takes people who have always seen themselves as non-creative or blocked in their creativity, and helping them realize that actually they are very creative and they have an artist from within. And she takes you on this journey of unlocking those parts of yourself, those parts of creativity, by doing much of what we do already, similar things as we do in the self-help world.
Mhm.
But she just takes it on it just feels more joyful and fun in a way. So it was really fun for me to read that book, and it started me on this journey of learning how to play again as an adult, because I had been taking life so seriously, and really been like, thinking that, okay, this is the way to do life. We need to get serious, and everything has to be serious, and we need to do it this way, and, make sure we're doing it the right way, and, whatever. So, when I read that book, it gave me somewhat of a permission to look into who I was, how I wanted to show up, and actually really honor my own perspective, which felt really good. So that led to me then having this, desire to write this book. So the book itself is really a culmination of everything I've learned in my almost 20 years of coaching my clients, but it's also my perspective on health, and just to gives a more nuanced view of fitness, and how, from many ways, how so many ways you can be creative with getting healthy too. I mean, it's like you're kind of bringing, in a way, when you're creating this journey for yourself and you're discovering parts of yourself, you're in a way bringing your athlete and your artist together as one. So this is what I'm helping people do, and I think it just makes the journey of getting healthy more fun, and just a more joyful process. And then you're kind of more owning it for yourself instead of doing it for someone else, which is many times we lose our purpose in it, because we're really trying to show up for other people and not ourselves, because we don't know how. So this is what a lot of what I talk about in the book. And so it's not your average fitness book, and I will also share that you're in the book because I really loved your book. And I have one chapter in there about regenerative farming and organic food. And so I mentioned your book in there because I feel like it's such a great resource for people to find, and learn about what kind of foods to look for in the grocery store. So
For listeners, I actually paid her to say that. That was a plug. That was a commercial in my own show commercial. We don't have to tell people that.
Don't tell anybody.
Well, you mentioned something something I actually struggled with for a very long time, and still even to this day struggle with. So it's kind of being like too serious in life, always feeling like you have to work, and in a sense that like if you don't work, you're going to fall behind. You're not going to like get as many clients, or you're not going to be as good as a practitioner if you don't keep studying or learning this or learning that, et cetera, et cetera. Like what's your take in terms of like probably the average Americans, overworked, they're supporting like two kids or like maybe even one kid and barely making ends meet, paycheck to paycheck. I know you're a mother. So what do you feel people of that sort can do? Because I feel like when you're living that way, I mean, you're in such a myopic state, like in a fear driven, like I have to perform today because I literally don't have like any money for tomorrow. And I feel
Yeah.
like you could easily lose your creativity if you're in that state. You know what I mean? In terms of especially finding like your mental and physical health. What's your take on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And that is the challenge that I bring to the table for people is, can you find your joy and your bliss within within anything, any kind of chaos that's going on around you. So with that goes re-examining your life. Is it working for you? Is running around like a chicken with its head cut off from one thing to the next, is that really serving you? And again, like I have been there. I've done that. And there was definitely some things I could have changed in that at that time to make the quality of my life much better. But I did not, I just didn't see it because, like you said, you're in this kind of stress mode, you're in a fight or flight mode. And, you are just you're kind of in that survival mode, really. So you're not seeing it. Like you said, you have blinders on when you're going through this. So really starting with simple things, like I talk about in my book, just starting with your breathing. I one thing I start all my clients with right off the bat before, you know, this is the thing that actually goes so far, is to repattern the breathing. Now, there's so many programs out there right now about breathing, and some of them can be pretty darn complicated, and you kind of have to really get in the thick of it to do it, right? And so it puts some people off because it just seems like it's a little bit much, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Me being one of those people, like I feel like, okay, it shouldn't be this complicated to know how to breathe. But and it isn't, because if you can start with small things, you don't have to be a yogi or meditate a whole bunch to learn how to breathe properly. There's a couple things that I'll point out here for this one. The biggest uh, the biggest thing you can do to help yourself get into that parasympathetic mode, that rest and digest, which is going to help you slow down enough to be able to see kind of how you want to tweak your life, what really matters to you most, and that's the core of it. Is to begin a nose breathing practice. So you probably know this, Eugene, but there is, and I learned this originally from the Oxygen Advantage, this book that I read about nose breathing, and how it's just so simple, but it's so profound how we how we've gotten away from nose breathing for the most part. So many people are breathing through their mouth the majority of the day, whether it be from the kind of foods they're consuming that need a faster, the kind of need for more oxygen faster. Like they kind of put you in that fight or flight mode, like the crappy foods would do that to you, but also just our lifestyle of being in this fight or flight mode, the sympathetic mode, where we're rushing from one thing to the next, and we're not even really taking any time to breathe. Like, I don't know if you've ever felt this way before, but I know I've been there, where I realize, I was realizing at some parts of the day, I was like, oh my God, I've been holding my breath for the last 10 minutes now, or whatever, however long it was, because I was trying to get somewhere. I was trying to rush, like I was like, oh, maybe time will go faster if I hold my breath. I don't know. Who knows why I thought that? But it's one of those things that we really take for granted and we don't put enough weight on, is nose breathing. So I go into the scientific, it's not too sciencey, where it's, you kind of, I lose people there, but it's enough science to back up why nose breathing works. And it's mainly because you increase your oxygen uptake. You also increase your nitric oxide in your body. And of course, it helps with immunity, because then you're filtering your air through your nose. But initially, people get in shape much faster if they start to learn how to nose breathe, which is just really paying attention to how much you're breathing through your nose, right? You just close your mouth and you try it. And for some people, it's pretty hard at first, But then, as they practice, it gets easier because your nose starts to open up. Sometimes our noses are closed a little bit because we've been breathing through the mouth so much. But what it can do for you is increase your oxygen uptake by allowing you to retain more carbon dioxide, which actually liberates your oxygen to your cells, or to the tissue. So then you get more nutrients to the tissue and, of course, more oxygen. So that to me is gold. Like if all I have to do is breathe through my nose the majority of the day and I get that benefit from it, heck yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to have an easier time hiking up a huge hill, or going on a hike and going up the steep parts, and I'm not going to be labored in my breathing. Yeah, I'm going to practice that. So those are and it also increases your energy as well. So those are the benefits of that. Not to mention that your jaw shape changes because now you're pulling your tongue up to the roof of your mouth. That's another way to start nose breathing, is to start practicing bringing your tongue to the roof of your mouth. And so kind of reshapes the jaw, and then also gets you more in also your stomach breathing. Like, so it brings the breath down out of the chest and into the abdomen as well. So,
with the nose,
yeah.
actually, to tell you the truth, I haven't studied breathing extensively. I always wanted to do Paul Chek. I saw you had some DVD on it or something. I always wanted to do that, but then like one course comes up, I do another one, and then another one, and then it's like many years go by, and I'm like, oh, I still haven't done that. Probably very short program he has and stuff with that sort. Well, with nose breathing, I take it you still breathe mainly like through your diaphragm, correct? Is that kind
Through
of
the diaphragm,
gotcha?
yeah, and the
Okay.
abdomen, yeah. And when I'm speaking, I use my my abdomen more as like the instrument of my speech, so that I don't have to take a big deep breath each time,
Mhm.
right? So when we're talking, we want to think of using our abdomen as our instrument, or when we're singing too.
The funny thing is, the second you mentioned mouth breather, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't heard that phrase literally since, like when I first came to the States, I had a babysitter. He was like Master Sergeant Bonilla. He was like a Marine Corps guy on the Tustin Air Base. So
Oh wow.
he would go watch me over the weekend while my parents would work. And he would refer to mouth breathers as like Marines with very low IQs. you know
Well,
yeah, so it's
it
like
has been associated with that,
that's
actually.
literally the last time I heard it was like, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. Never heard that phrase ever again, but you would always refer to like the low IQ Marine guys. It's those mouth breathers
That's
over
funny.
there.
Well, yeah, I think, well, part of it is there is some truth to that, because not to say that people who are mouth breathers are not smart. It's just that you are in more of a survival mode. So when we're in a more of a survival mode, we're not paying attention to detail. We're not really being creative, right? It kind of goes hand in hand. Like, we don't really have the energy to put into that. So, that actually, there is a grain of salt. I mean, there's a grain of truth to that, I think, but
Allison's
that's
like, I'm
interesting.
trying to be as respectful as
I
possible,
know,
but Eugene
I
always
know,
makes it hard for me.
right? No, it's fine. No, I think that's so funny, because I definitely remember hearing that too. That kind of, and yeah, we don't, that doesn't come up anymore, but I do remember that being a thing as well. People used to talk about that. Yeah.
Well, how have you been doing with this whole COVID thing and having a family? And what kind of challenges have you found yourself encountering over the last, let's say, since like March or so? Last March.
Yeah.
I know it's
Last
almost March
March.
again,
Yeah. Oh
but
my God. It feels like it's not even, it feels like I lost a year almost. Like, it's like, what, did a year go by? It just, time went so fast. And at the same time, I think just because, my business, well, the biggest thing, aside from my dad passing away, was that my business totally changed. Like, everything that I was doing before, which was more majority of my business. I was doing some online clients, but mostly I was seeing people in person at the gym. So when the gyms closed, then I quickly got everybody online and said, let's do Zoom. We're going to do this. We're going to get, I'm going to send you guys an equipment list. and we're going to, have fun with these home workouts. And me thinking that this was going to be a temporary thing,
Like 20
I
years
thought,
later, still doing
I
Zoom
know
workouts.
exactly. That's probably what's going to happen. But I was like, okay, I'll just help everybody maintain what we've already built, right? We'll just be in this maintenance mode. And then we'll get back to the gym and kind of, just pick up where we left off, right? Well, that never happened. And, I think they opened the gyms for like a minute here and then closed them back up. And now they just recently opened them back up again. But at this point, it's so easy. My clients, it's much more convenient. We've gotten into this groove of doing things online, which is in some ways really amazing that we can do that, and very, very convenient and much easier because I don't have to drive anywhere. And there's also, some limitations too, because you don't have the same equipment you're going to have at the gym. So you have a little bit more limited, a choice of things you can do, although there are, as I've learned, many, many options as far as that goes.
Mhm.
And you have to, it just takes a different type of creativity. And I have been so surprised, pleasantly surprised that my clients have been able to maintain and actually even get stronger
Mhm.
just because we've been able to focus on things that we weren't able to focus on in the gym. Like we've been able to do um, kind of work on things that, with feet or with, shoulders, or just kind of, fine tune some things within their body that they didn't have the opportunity to do before because we were in the gym. We wanted to get a workout in, now we've scaled it back a bit, and we're getting to the point where we're fine tuning things. And that's, I'm finding, more powerful in some ways than just
Mhm.
going in and just banging a workout. And not that I was doing that so much before, but it's like we were going much harder because we were doing more powerlifting and stuff like that in the gym. But now, you know, I've integrated a lot more kind of focus on balance work and stability and those kinds of things, as well as and then of course the heavy lifting is limited, but just because people don't have that kind of equipment at home,
Yeah. I
but
always
I found that they're still doing well though with what they have.
Yeah, I always tell people like I've heard, especially over the last year, but I found like people that always say like, I've lost my shape or I gained weight because they closed my gym. I find like those people would have gained weight even if the gym would have stayed open anyways, like eventually,
Yeah,
first and foremost. And I think the
right.
important takeaway is like, dude, like hunter gatherers had no Bally's membership. They had no healthcare plan. They had no retirement plan. They
Yeah,
had no, like, literally anything. And they're all
this is
jacked
true.
like all the freaking time. If you take out child mortality, they all lived into like their 50s and 60s. Meanwhile, you
Yeah,
got like 20-year-olds falling apart these days that
I
can't even do much.
know.
So they had no gym, and they're able to hunt down like huge mammoths with like a spear. They didn't even have like a rifle or anything. So
Yeah,
so don't think like you need a gym. It's 100. Like I had a bunch of clients
I
just
agree.
using bands like a door pull-up bar. Some of them
Yeah,
bought like the adjustable power blocks, the
yeah,
dumbbells. They're still able to get in really good shape. So in fact, like
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this with your clients. I feel like because of the transit time to the gym, like
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes that is the gym session that they don't have to do,
Yeah,
so they can be even more consistent because all of a sudden now they have like 2 hours
right.
extra per week because they don't even have to drive to the gym.
Exactly.
And then if they're not driving to work on top of that, they got an extra probably 2 hours. So now you got 4 free hours, which is more than enough to stay like super jacked,
Yes.
ripped like
That's
Jesus all
amazing.
year
Yeah.
round.
I know. Isn't that really cool that you have all this extra time now? That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and that's I think that is a gift for people. And then and then working out at home also helps with that consistency aspect. Like you don't really have any excuses anymore not to work out. You have everything right there. And, if you have a trainer that you're seeing on Zoom, you're going to be more consistent because, you're at home. Unless, I mean, half the time when people had to cancel on me, to get, it was about getting to the gym, right? But now that
You're like,
doesn't
there's a
happen
riot
anymore.
right outside the gym in Oregon. I can't come in because someone
Yeah,
threw Molotov
yeah.
at my car. You know?
Right, right. Oh my God. It does, it's so funny. The news like describes Portland as being kind of so crazy, and it is, but it's not like that everywhere. It's just like in the downtown area mostly, or it was. But thank goodness it's died down. It's just that it was a little. My mom was calling me at one point. She's like, "Is everything okay out there?"
Like you didn't pick
I
up
said,
your
"Yeah,
phone for 30 seconds. Are you still
yeah,
alive?
yeah,
You know,
right."
yes. Still
Exactly.
alive. Well,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
you mentioned, people can work on their breathing, which is obviously easy. It's not like, well, it's not easy. I mean, you got to learn the technique and everything, but it's not like
Right.
extremely difficult or complicated, and it's not time intensive, which is important for the busy crowd. But what other like little things that are covered in your book that people can do? Let's kind of introduce like a few more of these topics. Hopefully, it helps someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I get into some things about blocks, like I think one of the biggest I guess blocks is the right word to use for people, especially I was talking about this in January when we traditionally when we go to the gym in January and we're trying these New Year's resolutions, and then we burn ourselves out because we went too hard. We had the right intentions, but we burned ourselves out. Mainly, I think the reason that happens year after year, and sometimes, maybe this year people burned themselves out before they even got started because, really gung ho because everything's at home and, we're ready to go. But like I said, mainly what I think that people get off on the wrong track with, going so hard that they do burn themselves out, that they don't have a, a an idea of who they're doing it for and what their purpose is around it. So what I do in the book, and I also do this with my clients, is we talk about our personal values and our beliefs about both ourself and our body, and where those are coming from, because 9 times out of 10 when I first start working with clients, they come in with these beliefs and personal values that may be a lot of times are other people's, like they have expectations that are set by other people in their life that they're trying to attain, but they don't realize that those aren't actually their wants. Those aren't actually what they really want or what
Mhm.
their values are or their real beliefs about themselves, because they haven't explored that yet. So what I do is I help, I bring this up in the book and how you can start to discover your values and really what values mean, and we there's a lot of different ways of looking at values. You can have values that are common to other people, like your family, your immediate family, your parents, your society. That's totally fine, but there is a level of personal values that we have to own, and we have to define and clarify for ourselves. Therefore, if you're not aware of that, you're going to have parts of your subconscious constantly driving you to try to live up to these expectations and obligations that you don't really want to be doing, right? So this is why we fall off the wagon with fitness, because our spirit isn't in it, our heart isn't in it, because we're trying to do it for the wrong reasons. We're not doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for other people, right?
Yeah. Also, I found just from being like a fat loss coach for already like 14 plus years, I found like the bigger the disconnect between what you're referring to as values or I refer to as like core values,
Yes, yes.
like between basically like who the person is deep down inside and who they feel like they have to be in the external world, in the kind of like quote unquote real world,
Yeah,
the greater the weight challenges. Also, the
right.
greater the self-sabotage that's involved in those weight challenges. So they know consciously they want to not be overweight,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they know they're consciously making themselves overweight, but they still continue to do it. That's,
Yes.
yeah, there's a tremendous amount of truth in that. And I just find it, don't you find it kind of limiting when people are like, they're trying to embark on, I mean, just to keep the conversation simple, because
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so many health challenges, but when people are embarking on like a fat loss journey, for example,
Hmm.
and you hear so many people just saying like, oh, like clean up your eating.
Right.
Like, in my
I hate it
opinion,
when
that's
people
kind of
say
like
that.
the same as telling like an alcoholic to stop drinking. Like,
I
obviously they need to
know.
stop drinking
Right.
mouth
Yeah.
breather, okay, but it's not that is so surface level advice. It's like pretty much like
I
you use
know.
this
That's
for
not
like the
helping
opposite of
them.
useful. Like, what do you
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
My take is that, yeah, like I agree with what you're saying. I don't think it really helps someone to just say, just stop doing that, because obviously if they could do that, they would by now. There's an underlying deeper issue there. And the person themselves, they know that greater truth. It's just helping them see that, it's helping them as a coach. For me, like how I guide my clients is, I'm just helping, I'm peeling off the layers. I'm helping you see it yourself, for you to come up with that answer, right? And why, you know, uh, as you know, being a fat loss coach, there's many reasons why people gain weight. There can be so much emotional baggage that comes with that. There can be a level of protection that people need for why they do that. So to just say for someone, it can also be like how someone sees themselves. Like they might not be able to see themselves any other way right now until they, bring their energy to a place or a level where they can see themselves as losing that weight in that different body. Because again, um, it's so much more than physical. Physical is a manifestation of the energetic that you're putting out there. So if someone cannot energetically, you know, uh, expand themselves energetically to a place where they can make space for new changes, new opportunities, new behaviors in their life, right? They're going to have a hard time sticking to a program where they're going to be able to lose the weight because they don't want to let go of the old stuff too. That's another aspect to think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be willing to let go of your old stuff so that you can bring in a new opportunity, a new body, new energy, right? And so that's another thing to think about in that. That's how I like to think about it, and I want to set people up for success in that way by helping them manage their energy. That's another thing I talk about in the book. There's some very practical ways that we can manage our energy so that we can create that space and expansion for new change to occur, and it stays with you. It's like, number one, it helps you get to where you want to be faster, more efficiently, reaching your goals and that kind of thing. But also it helps you sustain that reality, right? So and rarely is that component addressed in fitness.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to kind of go out and learn it in other areas, with other kinds of coaches. But ultimately, I had to, really stop denying that it was real, because it is so it's just as real as the physical and really relates to it. It's just that, and if you know Paul Chek, and he talks about the subtle energy body, and how that relates to the physical. And once we can understand how those interplay and work together, then we're going to be much more successful with our weight loss program, or our any kind of physical program that you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for the listeners, don't take what Allison is saying like very lightly. It's actually, in my opinion, like the most important aspect, because it lays the foundation for the entire program of whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish health-wise. And without that solid foundation, I mean, even if your house is solid, I mean, you're building a very good house on top of a shitty foundation. and it's going to crumble eventually. And that's why so few people have success long term with their fat loss journey. I mean, like, probably from my experience, like, just I'll probably see like 95% of people that lose their 20, 30, 40 pounds just regain it in 2 or 3 years, like, no
Yeah.
problem, just because they literally just focused on nutrition and working out, which seems like the right answer on the surface. But if you just dig
Right.
deeper, you'll find out that it only works when that foundation is there, when that solid foundation is there as well. And
Yeah.
it's not going to work long term without it. So, and then watch, like, at the end, at the end of this podcast, they'll go Google, like, oh, I got to do keto or fasting. I'm like, oh man.
Right. Right.
Pretty much every time I hear people like say they're on a trendy diet, just like right off the bat, I instantly know they've either failed already in their journey or are going to fail in the future if they're already leaning in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, my belief is that every diet works, I mean, there's not one diet that's going to work for everybody, because everybody has a different perspective on what's going to work for
Mhm.
them. And, uh, you know, there, and like you said, that some people gain the weight back because they aren't maybe doing it for themselves. They're doing it for other people, or out of obligation or expectations, maybe not knowing that that's what's going on, and maybe not owning it themselves in a way where they can step into that energy and really, like I say, own it. Because um otherwise you're just trying to be something someone else wants you to be, and that's no fun, you
Mhm.
know um and again, it's scary sometimes for people to also change their bodies and see themselves differently. They're also being seen by other people differently. Some people may not even want to be seen at all, because there's some vulnerability, and they haven't really trained themselves to be seen, or done maybe there's some unrealized or unresolved trauma within being seen. So there's so many different reasons why people could be unsuccessful in those programs. And like you said, that it's great when that diet works for you, and hopefully that's but like I don't know at this point. I'm not sold on that's the only thing that works. I think you have to align all the stuff. You have to align the energy and the physical in order to just even just be happy and joyful. And because otherwise, I mean, you've seen probably people who, and I've been this person doing this diet. I got to where I wanted to be, but I was miserable. I felt like shit. Can I say shit on your show? Um,
It can say
is that okay?
anything.
Okay.
It's not
Felt
rated. It's
like
just
shit.
whatever it goes.
Okay. All right.
Varies from episode to episode. Listen at your own discretion.
Right. Right. I just remember a time where I had no energy, and I was on this, diet, and I felt like that's what I needed to do. And I lost all this weight. Not that I needed to lose weight, but I wanted to get to this point in my body that, where I thought I needed to be. But I wasn't able to do anything but just lay on the sofa, because I was so tired all the time. I was exhausted, um and I didn't have much energy to give anybody, much less myself. So and one, that's the other aspect I go into in my book, and what I work with my clients is your imagination muscles. Start to work those imagination muscles, so that you can uh, get more creative and innovative in what you want to create, right? Because we're creating a body here, right? This is a big deal, so there is some truth in uh feeling and seeing, and aside from what society tells you a beautiful body is supposed to look like, you have to learn how to define what your ideal body looks and feels like. What do you want to be doing in that body? What do you visualize yourself doing? What do you want to be feeling like? Those are all aspects to think about as well, and to embody during this process, because otherwise, again, it's just, you just kind of go through the motions, and that stuff gets, brushed aside. And then you end up maybe having to do it again. So my advice is, to start to work on imagination. I know I had to really work at that. I was not, like I said earlier in the show about taking life so seriously. I had totally, my imagination muscle was hypertrophied big time. I mean, I was just like, I couldn't
Well, who
even
doesn't want
muster
to look
up.
like a god? Come on.
I know, right? I mean, come on. What was I thinking? But like, I was just like, I had to muster up. Like, I couldn't believe how hard it was to, when somebody asked me to imagine something or to dream about something, I'm like, oh, I can't. It makes me feel so uncomfortable. I don't know. And I was like, there's something's not right here. This should be fun. This should be like really easy. So, so that's what I did. I started moving toward, getting more comfortable with my imagination and dreaming, and even my creative side. So I think tapping into that is so healthy. So just really integrating all those aspects of ourselves. We don't have to be this perfect, athlete that, and athletes aren't perfect anyway, but what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What's your purpose? What are your values? What are your core beliefs? Those are all the things that we want to get to the heart of here.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Evgeny Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
Well, where do you feel like, let's say like Instagram or something like TikTok fits into that equation in terms of the fitness world? Because I feel for the most part, it hasn't helped people.
Yeah,
In terms of their self-image and other things, especially in terms of their time management. I mean, the average client, I work with them on time management quite a bit. The average client spends about 3 hours a day on social media of various sorts. And then a lot of times there's same people that say they don't have enough time during the week to work out because they're too busy, I'm like, no wonder you're spending 21 hours a week on social media. Of course you don't have enough time.
That's a lot. Yeah,
And
that's
a lot of energy going towards other people's dreams and not your own dream that you could be putting that energy towards.
That's such a great point, Eugene. I couldn't agree more with that. And that is something I do talk about too, about, siphoning your energy. Where is your energy going? How, are you paying attention to that? Distraction can be good sometimes because it can give us a little bit of a break from what we're doing and from life, or help us become more creative and dream and that kind of thing, and give us some different perspectives and all that. But it can also be something that takes us away from our desires, our purpose. And so if you're somebody who is constantly getting frustrated because you're not meeting your goals, and you're getting pulled off track and distracted quite a bit, then you may want to consider cutting back on your social media. I know for me personally, I took all the notifications off my phone. It didn't even occur to me how disruptive the notifications were until a client I was working with, who owns her own corporation. She said, hey, some words of advice. I took my apps or my notifications off my phone because it's a constant interruption in your day. And you don't realize it in the moment because it seems very small, but over time that builds up. And so it builds up into something bigger, which really takes you off course. And then you look at yourself at the end of the day and you're like, did I actually do what I wanted to do today?
Mhm.
Or did my phone tell me what I needed to do today? Did I let my phone dictate my day? Right. So, again, they're all personal choices. There's no right or wrong, but if you do have a goal in mind, and you want to focus on that and you want to create that, then I would suggest helping yourself focus by doing less social media and taking the notifications off, because it can become a hindrance, in my opinion, for sure. And especially if there's something big you want to do, and you're not going to be able to keep your focus on that, on the task at hand. And I realized that in myself, and I said, of course I'm not reaching these goals, and I'm frustrated and I'm beating myself up because I'm not allowing myself to do this. So, yeah, like I had to define what was more important to me.
Yeah, I also find a lot of people, they could use alcohol to distract themselves. They can
Yeah,
use
yeah,
drugs to distract
definitely.
themselves, but a lot of people actually use like social media to distract themselves from like a day they don't want to be in or a life they don't
Yes.
want to be in as well. I
Yeah,
don't know if you find
I
that
think
with a lot of people as well.
I think, yeah, that's a great point. And what comes to mind when you say that, Eugene, and I don't know what your experience is with this, but I personally, from my experience, I see many people, and I would include myself because I've had to learn how to do this as well, have a hard time learning how to down regulate at the end of the day, right? So our nervous
Mhm.
systems are up. We've gone through all this stuff, and so sometimes people go to the alcohol and or drugs, at the end of the day, to down regulate their nervous system. But you and I know that that's not the best choice. But for some people, maybe a glass of wine is okay. You probably don't want to do that every night. You don't want to depend on that. Truthfully, I've gotten to a place where I would rather do it through stretching, through foam rolling, through just laying on the ground and just kind of feeling into the ground and just relaxing fully, doing that. But sometimes I'll watch a TV show, at the end of the night to down regulate and wind down, so I don't have to think about anything. That's helpful, and of course, wear my blue light glasses so that I don't get too amped up from watching the screen. But I think that it's that down regulation aspect is what's really challenging for people, mainly because, and I just talked to a client about this the other day. She was asking me advice on how to have rhythm in her day, and she kind of felt like she was all over the place. And I mentioned to her, well, and she has her own business, so I said, is there a time that feels right for you to cut your day off? Because when you have your own business, you're going to just keep going, right, until you get that work done. But you have
Mhm.
to have boundaries to where, okay, now my day is done, my work day is done. I'm going to start winding down for the rest of the night, right? And so you have a winding down routine. You're going to cook, you're going to enjoy cooking with your family or by yourself and have a nice relaxing meal. We do floor sitting in our house. So we took the legs off of we kind of cut the legs down on our table. And so we do like a
Mhm.
Japanese style seat dining situation. So I find that more comfortable and grounding, and then we have the candles as well. We by candlelight. So there's all these things you can do to help your body unwind, right? Because your body needs a little help. This world is a little cray cray, sometimes a little crazy. And there's a lot of stimulation, and we have to have a plan of action when it comes to down regulating our body.
What do you think? I've been having this kind of thoughts back and forth in terms of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like very hard or like almost impossible, I'd say, for most people to achieve optimum health while living in civilization.
Yeah.
Simply because of the like low grade chronic stress imposed. It's nothing like usually super serious, but I don't want to take over the conversation too much. Low grade chronic stress is basically what's actually very stressful in the central nervous system. It causes all sorts of health problems long term. Because I kind of like every time, like you go to Barnes and Nobles, for example, and this is like included, my books are included in this as well. Like all of the health books, all of the mental wellness books out there are basically written to kind of counter a byproduct of something that would happen only if you live in civilization.
Right. Yes.
And if you just walked, because if you just, let's say like you didn't live fully off grid, but you lived semi off grid in nature.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you eating? You're eating wild game, wild fish, and wild crops. All of a sudden you've eliminated probably like 90+% of disease just right there. You're getting low grade dynamic movement throughout the day, which is the healthiest form of movement for your body. And you're just by default out in nature and not cramped, not like in sardine cans type of city environment, plus without all that crime around there and seeing the poverty and everything, which could be stressful as well, et cetera, et cetera. And then having to pay this bill, deal with this rule, deal with this law. And I feel like the biggest hindrance of living in a civilization is no matter how hard you try, you still have to wear multiple masks to survive in that civilization.
Yeah, so to speak, right?
So you always have to be fake,
Yeah.
like, all the time. What are your thoughts on that?
When you say fake, what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean when you say fake?
Well, I mean, it could vary so much from obviously person to person and circumstances. It's all dependent, but in the sense that just something as simple as like, oh, I don't want to work 5 days a week, but I want to work 3 days a week. But every company pretty much makes you work a minimum of 5 days a week,
Yeah.
Or of course, we can extend on the topic. They can hire a business coach and learn how to work for themselves and then set up their own, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just kind of, I don't want to take over the conversation. I just wanted your opinion on that.
Please do. Please do take it over. It's fine. This is a two-way street, Eugene. So, I think what you're asking is, it sounds like you're saying that the fitness books out there that you get they only are applicable to people who live in cities where there's already a high stress component, many things that we probably can't do anything about, like 5G being one of those, I guess. And of course, yes, there's electromagnetic stress. There's light stress outside from, street lights and stuff. There's exhaust fumes. There's noise pollution. There's all kinds of things about living in a city. And of course, all of those things don't seem quite worth it anymore since a lot of the cities have been locked down and you can't go out to restaurants as much anymore and all these things. So
I'm like, finally, I keep telling clients not to eat out for the longest time and now they finally can't eat out. I'm like, oh, it all worked out,
See, your dreams came true, Eugene.
Speak of the devil, he shall appear,
That's right. Yeah, everybody had to learn how to cook, like out of necessity, right? That's actually not
I still don't know how to cook. Yeah. I still use an oven to cook all my meals.
Oh, you do?
And a rice cooker, so I have not learned yet.
There you go, rice cooker. That's a start.
But I have survived 36 years without knowing how to cook, so others can too.
Yeah, you could get the Instapot. That's a great tool that I use all the time. Great cooking whatever thing. But so. With that being said, yes, there's always something environmentally that is going to have an effect on our nervous system. It's going to have an effect on our health. So, what can we do about that? I don't know that there's too much that you can do other than, about the environmental stuff, because you have to kind of work with it. So, in my opinion, lightening your toxic load, like you can go about it by not putting chemicals on your body, not taking chemicals into your body. That's going to lighten your toxic load to a great extent there. Sticking with organic, clean foods like you talk about, Eugene, is key. And supporting your liver, which is your main detoxification organ, is also extremely important. But then you also, so, really that food foundation is what's going to help the nervous system short term. Like, so if you're not even doing that as a foundational practice, your blood sugar regulation, eating really high quality foods, and those kinds of things, then I would work there first for most people. And then you can go into, okay, water, of course, water quality, um, and environmental. So we're mostly in our homes now. Um, well, here in Portland, I say that, but I think other places, people are getting out more. But here, I'm in my home more because this is where I'm working now, and your environment in your home is also important to think about how much stress there is in your home, right? So do you have a toxic carpet? Do you sleep on, is there a lot of toxins within the house? Do you use toxic chemicals to clean your house, right? Those are all things that you can control, right? As well as what, like I said, what you put on your body. So those are initially, I find people use a lot of chemicals on their body and in their house. That's the first step. But I think that we have such a far way to go with the toxins in our environment. It's people talk about climate change, and unfortunately, they talk about it without talking about regenerative farming and how much that has an impact on it, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, you can't talk about climate change without regenerative farming. It's nothing we can do is going to change it until we change our farming practices, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're not talking about that. And we're not talking about how harmful GMO foods are for the environment, as well as for our bodies. We're talking about other things like cars, which they're not great either, but that doesn't even touch the level of damage that the monocropping and
Mhm.
GMO farming does to the earth.
Well, I think the biggest issue is that policymakers, like, first of all, like, sick people can't make healthy choices, which sounds obvious on the surface.
Yeah,
They wouldn't be
right.
sick if they can make healthy choices. And when you look at most policymakers, they're just very sick and unhealthy looking. So obviously, they're not even consciously aware of what health is. So they can't obviously make the best healthy
That's
decisions
so
for them,
true.
because they can't even do it for
Yeah,
themselves. If you can't do it for yourself, how are you going to do it for an entire country? First of all, you don't even
exactly.
know. You don't even
Yeah.
know how to do it, even if you wanted to. You
And they're
just
giving
don't
people
know.
advice on health, which is
Yeah, exactly.
ironic, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's your take about in terms of so? Last time I looked into it, they spent like $1 trillion on these stimulus packages or something like that, maybe even more. I don't even
Yeah.
read the news, so I'm totally out of the loop.
It's
But in
probably a
my
good
opinion,
thing.
yeah. So, but in my opinion,
It's-
it's kind of like, okay, universal healthcare. They wanted universal healthcare. I'm like, dude, just take a small fraction of that universal healthcare, and for lack of a better phrase, literally just brainwash kids from like elementary school through high school on how to just have a basic understanding of moving properly, having nonviolent forms of communication,
yes.
understanding like what real food is. Just that
Yes.
alone, the real like the real like virus, in my opinion, it's not COVID-19. It's a belief system that leads people to have a tremendous amount of disease in their body. I mean, walk outside like
Absolutely.
literally anywhere in America these days, and like 9 out of 10 people you run into are like full of obesity and disease. So
Yes.
that belief
Yes.
system is a meme or a set of beliefs that resides in the host and eventually ends up killing the host, which is exactly what a virus would do as well. And you have like
Yes. That's a
600
great way to
to
see it. Yeah.
yeah, you have 600 to 700,000 Americans just dying from very preventable heart attacks every
Yeah.
single year, like literally
Yes.
every single year, plus that same amount of people dying from cancer, which the bulk majority of them are also preventable just through
Yes.
good lifestyle and nutritional choices.
That's so true. But
So
yeah, we don't
if the
put that
government,
together.
yeah, if the
Yeah.
government really wanted to save lives, and I don't know why really they don't, because each time a person dies, a taxpayer dies, which is their customer. you
Yeah.
know? That
It
is their
makes you
customer.
wonder. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
just think, like you said, I don't think that there is enough innovation and creativity within the people who govern us to really know uh, that potential, Eugene. I know it sounds simple for us because we've been doing this for so long, but they just are doing what they've learned in school, which is what is the basic health model that you learn in school, right? Is
like take
the
1,000
food pyramid.
steps.
Yeah, whatever it is, right? It's the corporate version of like health or whatever. And so they are just doing because they have not, there's some people who haven't really gotten curious enough to really look into that and to get healthy themselves. And so they're the ones that are giving people advice about health, unfortunately. And they're the so-called authority on that, which is, in my opinion, is tragic, because if we really want to, and I would include some doctors in that too, because I haven't really been happy with some of the advice. There's some doctors that are really um, have some really good advice on what you can do, but they're not the
It's
ones who
far in
are
between. I'm
are
just going to be
being
honest from my
listened
experience and
to.
observation.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, when you hear a doctor speaking some sense, you're like, oh gosh, okay, I better listen to that person because they, you know, uh, there's some intelligence there. But you know, yeah, it blows my mind um, where some of the doctors are coming from right now. I don't get it, but they're not practicing medicine. It's more like a pharmaceutical company. They're like part of the pharmaceutical company, I think. It seems that way anyway, right? They're
Yeah,
like
it
an
seems
extension of that. Yeah.
for the amount they get paid, I would say it's like almost criminal for like what they do, and just adds insult to injury. Like I've had countless people
Yes.
come to me with weight challenges, and their doctor prescribed them to like go to have like these appetite suppressant medication. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
like,
just
dude,
like,
come on. Like,
I
how retarded
know.
can you be?
Yeah. Why? How could they think that is possibly a good idea, especially long term? That's going to help somebody? No. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand where they're coming from. I wonder what kind of education they're getting. So, I think everybody should ask themselves that question if it makes sense to them, because it doesn't make sense to me, you know?
Well, what are some credible, like I always refer people to, I don't want to just self-promote here, but
Yeah.
like Czech faculty members are always great to reach out to if you want like a good resolution to any health issues.
Yeah.
Do you know any other credible institutes? Obviously, you could reach out
Well,
to Allison as well.
yeah, absolutely. I always believe I'm a big believer in a really great I mean, it should be really simple. Your nutrition program should be simple. Like you said, you should really be able to learn a nice, healthy fitness and food foundation that will be good enough to support your body with anything you come across. Beyond that, I personally see a chiropractor every month, a couple times a month, sometimes, just because I believe that aligning the spine is it's very crucial to your organs, your vagal nerve, for all of those things to work properly, as well as I do acupuncture. So those are my main doctors right now. Just because I don't see any value in going to a medical doctor at this point, like a conventional medical doctor. I don't see that I would get any value in that at this point. So what I do is I go to chiropractors, acupuncturists, naturopaths are great also to work with. Obviously, if you have something like a broken arm or you have an injury that needs to be healed, you're going to go to a doctor who specializes in that. But most times though, when you're dealing with something that is autoimmune in nature or something that's more chronic, you most likely want to go to someone who can guide you through that process and sees that as a long-term solution of how they can bring you through that process rather than an easy, quick fix, because it's a healing process, right? Josh and Jeannie, who I've worked with for years at East West Healing, they're great at helping people through the process and help many people through serious thyroid issues as well. So people like that, and beyond my scope of help are also very helpful for that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, food, as you know, is it just goes so much further than we give it credit for. High quality food, it makes, and ultimately your body is healing itself. It's not the medicine that's healing your body.
Mhm.
It's your body that's healing itself, and it heals itself with the energy reserves that you have, which is your nutrients, right? So that's, if you look at it like that, it's just your ability to do that. And if you can work on propping that up better, supporting your systems better so they work more efficiently, then really, ultimately, you shouldn't really need to see doctors on a regular basis like that, other than people who, I dare say, other than people like a chiropractor who with a spinal adjustment and those kind of things, especially if you live an active life, or acupuncturists as well.
Yeah, I also found with like physical injury, obviously, if your arm's like blown up, you should go you should go to the
Yeah.
emergency room. I'm not saying in that case you don't, but I
Well,
found
no, I just
with
wanted
like
to sound a little practical there,
yeah,
because I don't want to tell people not to go to doctors. Obviously, there's a purpose for it, but my perspective, this is where I'm coming from, and how I use it personally. And I've always thought of doctors as more consultants than authorities anyway, right? So with that being said, take that with a grain of salt.
well, what I was hinting at was that in terms of surgeons,
Yeah.
a lot of times they would jump into surgery way sooner
Oh,
than
yeah.
needed. So
Yeah.
especially with like I feel like back injuries, like Dr. Stuart
Yes,
McGill
that
was able to
too.
prove that 95% of low back surgery candidates were able to avoid surgery by just teaching the person how to avoid their pain trigger and
Yeah.
move a little better.
Yeah.
Like that's
It's amazing.
literally for the most part it, and maybe have like a little bit of core stability exercise, which he refers to as the McGill Big Three. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm
I
simplifying it
love
here,
that.
but the
Yeah.
whole point is like these people were told by medical doctors to have surgery when in fact, if you just showed them how to identify their pain triggers, like sitting, oh,
Yeah.
that hurts my back. Okay, then don't sit. Give your back a chance to heal enough, and then you can return
Right.
back to slowly sitting.
Yeah.
And that's it. That was able to avoid surgery there. I'm like, dude, why do such a
That's
dangerous
incredible.
procedure when
Yeah.
you could just,
Well,
obviously it's money,
it's
really.
money.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
obvious money.
but also that's all they know, right? They know how to fix things that way. And so that's where you have to have some kind of a level of discernment within your own self to know, okay, well, is that going to be right for me, And I that's the way we, I think, really need to approach health, is with a high level of discernment, and like you said, there has been, I've heard of those studies where there isn't really much difference and sometimes it's actually you get a faster healing response if you don't do the surgery. The surgery doesn't really help. And so what does that tell you? It tells you that, we're trying to, we're not addressing what really needs to be addressed within that. Like, maybe, like you said, um, we can not try to force our body into this healing super fast so we can get back to what we're doing. Instead, let's allow our body the space to heal. Give it space, give it time. Don't try to rush it, because your body has its own rhythm, right? So it's like realizing that process, which isn't really taught in the medical field either. Realizing the process that the body has in its own healing is huge. And once you kind of put that together within your own body, then you're like, oh, I just need to give it some time. I just need to lay here on the sofa and watch a comedy show And then my back will probably feel better by the end of the day. Maybe I just need to get a little food, drink some coconut water, you know, and I might be okay. Maybe it will feel better. And then you start to learn how your body, the things that your body needs and what respond, what will respond, what your body will respond well to. And you start to figure out, oh, I wasn't eating enough. Like my connective tissue got really tight, and started, my muscles started to spasm because my blood sugar was low. Little things like that we can start paying attention to, and so then we can allow our body to go through its process, and then also support it better that way. So those are the things that I've learned through the years. And I also talk about in my book and how you can support it. But it's about holding the space for integrating that information, because like you said, in our society, we're just rushing through life without really paying attention to the nuance of it all. So how joyless is that? Like, how that's not fun. Like, like we need to see the beauty in the process. I mean, we don't need to, but it's nice if you can.
Well, when does your book come out, or is it already out?
Well, I am now in the proposal process. I'm proposing the book I'm putting together a proposal so I can do it, submit it to the publishers. And I have some publishers in mind that I really am excited about. So my hope is that late spring or early summer, it'll be published. And if not, if I don't find the right publisher, most likely I'll publish it myself, and then seek out a publisher after it's already published. People have done that as well. So there's a lot of different ways to do it that I'm finding, and I'm learning more about the process myself. I've never done this before, so you might even be able to give me some tips on that as well. I'd love to pick your brain on that, Eugene.
Yeah. What's the name of the book again?
It's called Finally Thriving.
Finally Thriving. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, do you have any closing statements that you would like to touch on?
Yeah, I would like to share with everybody, if you want to know when the book comes out and get a copy of the book, I would get on my newsletter. So get on my email list, follow me on Instagram as well. Those are the two best ways to know, as well as, the third way would be to subscribe to my podcast, because which is called Integrate Yourself. And I'm usually keeping everybody up to date on what's going on that too. But yeah, the best way is to initially get on that newsletter, because that's where I'm going to be putting out the information when the book comes out as well. So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being a guest. It's honestly good to see you.
Yeah. Oh, my website is
Actually, I didn't even see
Pure
you
Energy.
for the first time when we first met. We just had
What's
a chat.
that?
I forgot. So it's good to see you again, but I'm like, the first time we met, I didn't even see you that first time.
That's true. There was no video. I don't know
Yeah.
why we didn't do video that time,
okay.
but I don't remember. But
Hey, you were
real
gonna say
quick.
something. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. It's I forgot. My website is pureenergypdx.com.
Mhm.
And I'll send you that link too. But yeah, they can go there and do all that stuff that I just mentioned. But yeah, it's so good to see you again, and
Cool.
to catch up and all that, and good to hear that you're doing great out there in Texas.
All right, Allison.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Evgeny Trufkin.